Morning, Holly. Welcome to this training session.
Thank you.
Holly, just briefly tell me, I know you want to be a site supervisor. Why do you want to be a site supervisor? What made you interested in that for a female in construction?
I want to progress in my career and I had an interest in safety, but I think going down the supervisor route first will give me a better understanding of what goes on in a construction site and how to better myself as a woman in construction.
Okay, well, I hope today's training session will prepare you more. Okay, so just a few things. Safety and housekeeping. I know you don't often come to the office, so just be careful of the chairs in the boardroom. The surface is very slippery, and as you go out, you might the chair might just slip. Then it is hot in the boardroom, so I'm just going to put the aircon on. It's a bit stuffy.
Starting to warm up here.
Yeah. Okay. So just again, in any emergency situations, we have two doors to get out, but normally we would just go in the front door, and the muster point is in front, and then the ladies' toilet is just as you go out on the left around the corner is a toilet. There is some coffee facilities, so we will break after the first session, and then we will have a brief coffee and some sandwiches. So just briefly, we're going to look at a case study analysis, and we're going to do an activity as well, and then I'm going to give you some feedback and you're going to give me some feedback. Okay. So obviously it's about communication on site and the different kinds of communication we get on site. So today it's effective communication on Kilmore Group sites. And we're looking at supervised site communication and administration processes. And then you can also see the training code of this unit. And obviously it's by me. Okay. So by the end of the session, we would identify key communication channels used on site, analyze communication breakdowns, which often happens, and propose solutions. And then we're going to develop a site communication matrix, and that hopefully would help you with future communication on site. Can you give me an example of when communication didn't work on site? Because I know you have worked as a junior on site in the past. So when does, in the previous time on site, when didn't it work for you?
We had a subcontractor on site that weren't very effective in telling us when will they be on site or when will they be off site. They didn't meet our health and safety standards, which was a massive thing. They wouldn't use our software to log in and log out of site. So this created a massive divide with that subcontractor. We had to have a couple of meetings. One included a safety breach meeting, and we had to have a massive discussion about what they were doing wrong and how we could help them fix the issues.
Okay.
It did eventually resolve itself. They did eventually take on our advice. Took a couple of months to get there, but we gave them a second chance, and thankfully it worked in their favour.
Okay, that's good. That's a good example. In my history as well with site works, although I am safety, I do see a lot of times that communication doesn't work on site, especially when there's an incident on site, and sometimes the site supervisor forgets to take witness statement, to take photos, and or even to contact me, and it's then that it really results in an issue. Because some incidents need to be reported to WorkSafe, and if that's not done in a timely way or a client is notified, it does create a big issue. So that's now two good examples of where communication broke down on site. Okay, so let's move on. So communication drives coordination, safety, and efficiency. So if poor communication leads to rework, safety incidents like we just explained now, and delays. So why do you think communication matters on site?
Without communication on site, it can lead to health hazards, safety hazards on site. Because if, for example, there's a scissor lift working in one area, no one has discussed that this scissor lift is working in that area. You could have people not using common sense and just walk beside it, and that's where your exclusion zone sits then. So therefore, they're impacting their works, and then if something fell off the scissor lift, for example, that's that person injured.
Yeah.
So that's where it's a long firing line then of miscommunication.
Yeah.
And it does create a lot of, it can create an incident can occur from miscommunication, and it has happened in the past.
Yes, oh, definitely. So just as a explanation also for anybody watching this, so they understand. So on a site, you've got your project manager, and your project manager reports to the client. And he basically managed the whole project, and he reports again to the directors. So the project manager then decides on who he wants as his site manager or site supervisor on a site. That site supervisor is supported by a site coordinator. And again, the project manager is supported by a contracts administrator. So that's basically 4 very important people that need to communicate with each other almost on a daily basis. And then we've got the subcontractors below them. So normally you would have your weekly meetings with your project manager as a site supervisor, just catching up on the progress of the project. Again, the project manager would supply you with a program, a construction program of when he expects things to happen, and when there's some halt points as well on site. So it's always a communication back and forward. And if there is a delay on anything, then the contracts administrator and the site coordinator would communicate with each other as well. So it's 4 very important roles. And also the contracts administrator is the one that would ask or request quotes and then place contracts with subcontractors. The site coordinator would then make sure that the subcontractors know when to come to site, and there's a lot of planning in site works and the sequencing of works on site, which will then be discussed on with the site manager. And as you know, when we go to site, there's a big whiteboard in the site office with a weekly planner on, so everybody knows what's going to be delivered and what's happening on site. And obviously you've got your daily pre-start meetings as well. Okay, so that's a lot of communication that's happening on site. So let's just see. Types of communication. You get verbal communication, like we know we get toolbox talks, we get site briefings, we get daily pre-starts, a quick catch up with a subcontractor face to face. So there's lots of communication going on on site. Then you get written communication as well. We know emails, sometimes even SMSs, which is digital. And then you get reports, which is your construction program report. You get progress reports. You get a lot of written communication. Digital is your SMS, your project management software. You get your Hammertech software, which what we're using. Then you get visual, that's that big notice board that I was talking about. You get your plans that you print out, you get your signage. So a lot of types of site communication. Is there any that you can think of that's not on there?
I suppose posters and stuff. And a lot of posters probably a big one, especially when we use mates in construction and stuff on site, we have a lot of their posters, and that would be kind of a type of a visual communication for workers, for example. I can't think of anything else that I would add to that.
And we've also got on Hammertech that bulletins that we can send out, and that bulletins would go to everybody on that site. So if there is anything that everybody needs to know urgently, we can use that as well. So a lot of different types of communication. So common communication breakdowns, and that often happens. So when it's missing, you forgot to tell somebody something, you couldn't attend a meeting, or the instructions is very unclear, which has happened in the past, even in our department. Information not reaching key people. We're not aware who's a supervisor of subcontractors. And then you send it to a worker and he's not communicating that back to the team. And then also poor documentation. We know that's also happened in the past. Like we've got this scaffolding as a good example, where a handover certificate wasn't provided, and now we're finding that that scaffold wasn't built up to standard. You know, all of that is good examples of poor communication breakdowns. Do you have any examples? Recent examples?
I suppose on one of our sites, one of our workers went and did a job he shouldn't have done. He wasn't trained to do it, but thought he could do it anyway.
Yeah.
He didn't, so the supervisor told him what to do. He went and did the opposite because he was unclear of the instruction, but didn't ask the supervisor for more clarity on the job at hand. Therefore, that resulted in him getting injured. So that was a miscommunication, and you would consider a breakdown of communication because there was key points missing from both parties on that incident.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and also the importance of training and making sure that workers are prepared to do the job that they are need to do on site. Yeah. Effective communication practices use clear and simple language. I mean, we are all talk different languages or have a second language or first language, and a lot of time, a lot of workers on site, you know as well, have only got basic English. So when somebody comes in and talk very high English, they don't always understand, and we all speak with a different accent. And especially you being Irish and me being South African, we know, you already know with me, you have to talk slowly. So it's all of that. And then also to confirm understanding, especially after a meeting, like when there's a crane lift, just to make sure after a meeting, preparing for a crane lift, that everybody understands exactly what's happening, at what time, and all the controls that needs to be in place. Document and distribute key points. It's also good, with the daily pre-start, if we submit that daily pre-start out to anybody that might have missed that meeting in the morning, so they're also aware of what was discussed in the morning. And maintain feedback loops. Always go back, like when at times supervisors attend meetings, but not the workers. That supervisor need to go back to his team, especially in the case of subcontractors, and then explain to them what's been discussed in the daily pre-start. So everybody knows exactly what's happening on a daily basis on a site. So we're going to look at a case study. So I've got a handout for you.
Thank you.
Explaining this case study. So a delivery of materials arrive late, and we've had a scenario like that a few times in the past, because subcontractors were not informed about the schedule changes. So obviously when we receive something late, you can just imagine the late cost, and it's delay the whole project. And if a project is delayed, clients isn't happy. So we need to look at what went wrong, who should have been informed, and how could this have been avoided. So in this instance, when we look at what went wrong, it was a lack of communication. So nobody confirmed with the subcontractors that the material were needed on site. So you can now imagine it might be a daily pre-start. I can tell you now, in this instance, it was a daily pre-start where the information wasn't presented to the subcontractors that the material had to be on site. But it can also be that the construction program was later never updated, which has also happened in the past in our company. And then the site team doesn't know when things are scheduled to be happening. So in this instance, it was the daily pre-start. The site manager didn't know of the changes and he didn't notify the subcontractor. Who should have been informed? So if we look at a communication matrix, which I would show you now, is if there is a delay of materials and materials were needed. Remember, you've now been to site. So if materials are expected, normally you guys write it on the notice board,
Yes.
on the weekly notice board, that this material is expected and this is what's going to happen during the week. And then the site coordinator would obviously update the daily pre-start meeting for the site manager to then discuss with the subcontracting teams. So that's where, somewhere in between there was a breakdown in communication. We already know what happened in this instance was that team didn't know that the program changed and that it wasn't conveyed to the subcontractor during a daily pre-start. How could this have been avoided? That weekly progress meetings with the project manager. So the project manager was on leave in this scenario and he never caught up with the team to explain exactly what's happening on site, and the program was never updated. So if we look at developing a site communication matrix for the site, we have to identify stakeholders. We have to define communication methods and the frequency of this communication. So we know weekly progress meetings with the project manager and the site team. So that needs to happen. Then we need to make sure that there's a daily pre-start communication with the subcontractor, where the site manager is then explaining it to the subcontractors. And then the site coordinator needs to update the notice board template in the site office, which everybody sees when they come and sign in and sign out daily. So I'm going to show you just a brief site communication matrix. So you can see your stakeholders is your project manager, your site manager, your site coordinator, and your subcontractors. So the project manager is he oversees the whole project. He works with a budget and obviously with a timeline in the program, and he communicates with the client. So like we see at Fiona Stanley project, he needs to let the client know when we work in certain buildings, when we do crane lifts, so that's that communication. So he reports again to senior management, who is the director and the client. And the communication method is progress reports. We've seen progress reports, client meetings, so normally they have a bi-weekly client meeting or fortnightly client meeting where the milestones are discussed. Are the projects still on time? And because clients don't want delays, and that costs money. Then the site manager is the overall site leadership, compliance oversight, and resource allocation. So that's the position that you're going to go in. A lot of pressure, but if you are very organized, there shouldn't be a lot. And he reports again to the project manager. So, and how he does that is site meetings, emails, formal reports. Obviously, his daily pre-start meeting is the communication with the subcontractor. So he catches up weekly with the project manager. And then also if there is incidents that happens, not just people that get hurt, but other incidents, delay in materials, anything like that. It can be a delay from a supplier. Then he needs to communicate that through to the project manager, and the project manager needs to convey that to the client. Then you get your site coordinator. The site coordinator supports the site manager with scheduling, documentation, subcontractor coordination, like that notice board that the site coordinator needs to update. Then that's your daily briefings, is your daily pre-starts. And then email updates where she follows up. You know how you normally get an email to say the subcontractor is going to site. Please,
Yes.
can we make sure that they are inducted in Hamertech and that they've signed on, that their insurances is in place, their swims are available and signed, plant and equipment, paperwork is uploaded, and that's done on a daily basis. Then our subcontractors again, they deliver the contract works, so they have to follow the safety procedures on site. They need to report hazards. They need to report to the site manager if there is any delays or any problems, or at times it can be 2 subcontractors working on one location. And the way we communicate with them and they with us is during toolbox talk. They've got a time to, because we always say, do you have any questions? And that's a time to raise if there is an issue with the site team. So that's your shift briefings as well, your daily pre-starts, your incident reports if something happens. And that's a daily communication. So that's now a very good example of that. Okay, so we're going to do an activity. Okay, so I've put a photo on our whiteboard. And this photo, which I will turn the camera around now, is about a bin that we actually had on one of our sites, on our Floriette site, where the bin was absolutely overflowing. And the breakdown in communication there was the site manager normally does his daily walk around on site. He didn't keep up to date with what is happening on site, and that he needs another bin replacement for the week. So normally the waste company would only come and replace the bin once a week. But that week there was a lot of ceiling fixes on site, and that bin just absolutely overflowed. So there was a bit of a communication error there, but the site coordinator, how it normally works is, if they see a bin is overflowing, the site manager will tell the site coordinator, and the site coordinator would then go and arrange for a second bin replacement. So that process didn't happen. So that was the breakdown. So we're going to complete a site communication matrix for the provided case study. And we're going to identify communication lines and responsibilities. So I'm going to ask you at this time to use the whiteboard. And then if you can first just identify the stakeholders. So I'm going to turn the camera around. Okay. Holly. So there you've got the photo. So let's write down who's the stakeholders.
So we have SM for site manager.
Yeah.
We have site coordinator, and then we would have workers. So that would include your subcontractors and our own workers as well.
Yes. And then we've got the waste company as well.
Yes, we have the waste company. So WC's the waste company.
Okay. So can you just explain from this scenario, where do you feel the communication breakdown happened?
So I believe we'd start with the site manager.
Yeah.
Because he would have done daily inspections of the work site, and he would have seen that the bin was overflowing, but he didn't communicate it to the site coordinator, who would then contact the waste company. So because the site manager didn't contact the site coordinator to organise the waste company to come and collect the bin and replace it with a new skip bin, it has led to the skip bin being overloaded. And then you also have the workers as well not communicating to the site manager to let them know that the bin was overflowing, because if the workers communicated that to the site manager, then in turn it would have made him contact the site coordinator, who in turn would contact the waste what's
Yes, perfect.
happening. So,
Because we said in the beginning, the workers and the subcontractors need to report hazards
yes.
to the site manager. So we've all got a responsibility, and that's what. So it's a two-side of communication.
Yeah.
So yes, no, very well. Thank you. That was very good. Okay, very good. Okay, so the objectives and key takeaways of this training session was to look at the different kinds of communication you get on site, how to prevent breakdown in communication, and then how to do a communication matrix to identify how can you improve communication on site. And you've completed now your own communication matrix from our scenario, which worked very well. You identified the stakeholders, communication channels, and the reporting frequency was daily. The workers could have reported that to the site manager as well. And do you have any questions thus far?
At the moment, I don't. However, when it comes to communication on sites, should our site managers, site coordinators, and including workers plus subcontractors be given, I wouldn't say responsibilities, but know how to communicate? As in, for example, with the waste bin, the workers mightn't have known who to contact about it. They probably might have assumed that, site manager, someone's organising that.
Yeah.
But because they didn't liaise with the site manager about it, you know, when it comes to or inducting people, could it be a case of you have a responsibility to identify hazards, because they might know that.
Yeah, because in our induction and in the system we're running on Hammertech, anybody can take their mobile phone and take a photo of a hazard, which that was, and then they can raise an observation, and that observation immediately emails through to the site manager. So if they use that, then that wouldn't have happened. The skip bin wouldn't have overflowed. So I think we maybe need to look at our own inductions just to make sure that the instructions of taking a photo and reporting an issue to the site manager using Hammertech is up to date.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good point, and it's something we can look at just after the training session.
Sounds like a plan.
So, okay, any improvements that you can see on our sites?
I think we need to reinforce our daily pre-starts, daily pre-starts, and maybe a debrief at the end of the day.
Yes.
To kind of identify, was there any incidents during the day or anything the supervisors and managers need to know about that happened throughout the day. Is there a PPE that they need, instead of coming in the next day going, I need this, this and this.
Yes.
Why did you say it the day before? So I think kind of reinforcing debriefs at the end of the workday as well with workers.
That's a good point. That's a good improvement for sites. Okay, definitely something we can discuss.
Yep.
Okay. So tomorrow we're going to do a second session.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this session.
Yeah, you did. Thank you very
You're
much.
not running away.
No.
Okay, thank you for attending.
Thank you.